A single search can look quiet from the outside. Trucks pull in, men in boots and vests move in measured lines, dogs sniff at the edges. But beneath that composed surface is a forensic orchestra. Maps, manifests, permits, legal briefs, safety checks, cell records, and 1,000 small decisions that determine whether evidence survives the day. If you want to follow every verified development in this complex hunt, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you get first-hand updates as new facts are confirmed. Landfill searches start long before the first shovel hits the dirt. They begin on paper, in meetings and maps, with careful planning that turns a massive, shifting pile of refuse into a legally contained search area investigators can work inside without compromising evidence or safety. Mapping is the first step. Investigators must identify which landfill cells received waste on the dates in question, then determine how waste traveled from curb to pit. That requires cooperation from municipal waste authorities, commercial haulers, and the landfill operator to produce tipping manifests and truck route logs. Those documents show which trucks dumped on particular days, what garages they originated from, and often which transfer stations they passed through. With that information, specialists can narrow a vast area down to likely zones where the material tied to a specific disposal event might be located. Containment comes next. Landfills are not neat, tidy fields. They are working industrial sites with compactors, cranes, and layers of refuse and cover material. Opening a cell for forensic excavation requires permits, often from county regulators and the landfill operator, because excavations can expose methane pockets, leachate, or other environmental hazards. Investigators create a perimeter and establish a chain of custody protocol for any material recovered. That protocol is essential. Every bucket of excavated dirt, every bag, every shard of material is logged, labeled, and photographed. Without meticulous documentation, what looks like a discovery can be dismissed in court as improperly handled. Route tracing ties the landfill back to other nodes in the disposal network. When a tip suggests that remains or evidence were moved, investigators must follow the path the waste likely traveled. From a home to a curb, to a municipal truck, to a transfer station, and finally to a landfill cell. Each handoff is a potential place to find corroborating evidence, passenger manifests, driver logs, CCTV at transfer stations. That work is detective work in the classic sense. Interviews with drivers, review of fleet telematics, and comparison of time stamps. Only by reconstructing routes can the search team avoid digging randomly and instead target the exact cells most likely to contain relevant material. Trash compaction is the grim reality that distinguishes landfill work from almost every other forensic exercise. Garbage does not sit pristine in a pile. Landfill compactors, machines that render and compress waste to maximize space, crush, shred, and intermix materials. That mechanical action accelerates decomposition dramatically. Soft tissues degrade faster when compressed and surrounded by anaerobic bacterial environments. Objects that could serve as identifying evidence, clothing, diaper materials, small toys, can be torn, smeared, and distributed over a wider area. Pieces of the same object can end up separated by meters or even deposited in different spots across a landfill cell. Investigators therefore must account for the way compaction scatters evidence. A remnant of fabric might be found where biological traces are absent, while bone fragments may surface some distance away. That scattering complicates chain of custody and evidentiary linkage because prosecutors must demonstrate that separated items belonged to the same source and were not coincidentally present. Compaction also changes how search teams excavate. Rather than digging in neat 1-meter squares, teams use grid patterns that anticipate the spread of materials. They call on specialized equipment like mechanical screeners and sifting units designed to separate small particles, and sometimes even use forensic anthropologists who can recognize bone fragments that might otherwise look like calcified debris. The deeper the compaction, the more the search becomes about pattern recognition rather than single, dramatic finds. Investigators must be patient, and their methods must be defensible to judges and juries. The legal system demands that searches be thorough and properly documented, not hurried or haphazard. Safety risks at landfill sites are not hypothetical. Methane pockets can ignite, unstable slopes can collapse, and toxic gases, hydrogen sulfide, volatile organic compounds, can threaten teams physically. Before an excavation begins, environmental experts monitor gas levels, secure air quality equipment, and ensure that heavy machinery operates within safe parameters. Workers wear protective gear and are often rotated more frequently than in non-hazardous searches to avoid exposure. Unstable terrain, with hidden voids or unexpectedly soft cover material, requires careful shoring and sometimes remote-operated devices to remove the top layers before human teams enter. These safety layers slow work, but they are essential. A rushed search that risks lives would immediately compromise the entire investigation and could lead to legal sanctions. Given these practical and safety hurdles, investigators always prioritize legally defensible recovery over quick but compromised searches. That means they will not simply rush a backhoe into a cell and hope for the best. They prepare affidavits, secure search warrants that describe the scope and methods, and coordinate with environmental regulators to ensure compliance with waste management rules. A properly handled excavation preserves the evidentiary value of any finds and reduces the risk of defense motions to suppress discovery results for procedural faults. The need for legal defensibility explains why landfill searches can take days or weeks of preparatory work before any physical digging, and why the public, watching trucks arrive, may mistake careful preparation for inactivity. While landfills occupy much investigative attention in cases where disposal is suspected, searches also extend into valleys, ravines, and remote spots where someone might attempt to hide evidence off public records. An escorted valley search, like the one reported in the Haro matter, reflects an investigative pivot. When tipping leads, phone data, or witness reports suggest movement through less formal landscapes, detectives respond by combing those areas too. Valley terrains present their own challenges. Thick brush complicates visibility, drainage channels hide evidence, and scavengers can scatter materials. But valleys can also contain ancillary evidence investigators won't find in municipal dumps: disturbed soil layers, recent soft earth, fresh shovel marks, or personal items discarded along a route. Those clues may not recover remains, but they can locate where someone stopped, how they traveled, and whether disposal was deliberate or opportunistic. Cell phone records are a central pillar in modern timeline reconstruction. Telecommunication data, call logs, SMS timestamps, and, crucially, cell site location information can place devices in proximity to specific areas at particular times. When coordinated with CCTV timestamps and vehicle movement, cell data can corroborate or disprove alibis. Investigators often obtain forensic extracts from phones to analyze location history apps, Wi-Fi associations, and Bluetooth handshakes that indicate nearby devices and hotspots. These datasets build a movement map that can be visualized to show how phones, and, by inference, their owners, traveled through cities, transfer stations, or toward remote valleys. Importantly, phone data can also show when a device was turned off or when it stopped connecting, times that often align with windows where evidence could have been moved or concealed. Witness reports and surveillance footage refine investigative leads and timelines by adding human and visual context to the raw data. A neighbor's recollection of a truck idling at a transfer station, a gas station clerk's note about a late-night purchase, or a security camera's capture of a vehicle entering a particular route can shift investigators from broad hypotheses to targeted actions. Surveillance, in the form of red light cams, toll booth images, or private business footage, can provide license plate reads, vehicle color confirmation, and timestamps that align with tipping manifests. Together, witness statements and footage create a corroborative lattice. Human memory offers nuance and motive, while cameras and logs provide hard timestamps. Valleys and off-grid areas may contain ancillary evidence not found in municipal waste streams. While landfills are mechanized and chaotic, a ravine or scrubland often preserves traces differently: fibers lodged on thorns, a plastic bag snagged in brush, or soil disruptions where someone dug and then refilled. Such areas may also hold items like footwear or crushed containers that a landfill's compaction would destroy. Environmental factors differ too. Shaded ravines may slow decomposition and preserve bone or cloth longer than anaerobic landfill conditions. That means detection dogs, forensic paleontologists, and even drone-mounted thermal sensors can be productive in such terrains. Investigators need to broaden their search logic beyond municipal bins to understand that disposal isn't always centralized. People sometimes use remote spots precisely because they believe the absence of records reduces discovery risk. Multiple dumpsters and a network of disposal containers complicate tracing because waste dispersal is distributed. A single household's trash can be collected by various haulers on different days and may end up in separate transfer station streams before unioning at a landfill. Commercial dumpsters invite further complexity. A neighboring business might use the same hauler or a separate company, and items discarded in public receptacles can be added to municipal routes. Each dumpster represents a node in a web. Tracing one item means following it through potentially multiple manifest changes and truck reassignments. Investigators must therefore build a matrix of possible disposal paths and prioritize them based on corroborating evidence like witness descriptions, CCTV captures at dumpster locations, or purchase records indicating where suspect items originated. To manage this web of possibilities, investigators rely heavily on manifests, telematics, and tipping receipts before committing to excavation. Manifests show the documented movement of commercial loads, telematics reveal the GPS routes and engine data of haulers, and tipping receipts indicate the time and cell number assigned at the landfill when a load was dumped. Cross-referencing these documents with surveillance and phone records can isolate a particular truck or cell. Executing a warrant on a specific cell or segment of landfill without that documentation risks wasting resources and damaging prosecutorial credibility. Manifests and receipts also serve an evidentiary role in court. They demonstrate chain of possession for waste streams and show that investigators followed a rational, document-based process when deciding where to dig. The takeaways are stark and practical. Landfill searches demand precision, safety, and time. They cannot be rushed without undermining later prosecutions. Evidence may be scattered across municipal systems, valleys, and multiple dumpsters, so investigators must pursue multiple lines simultaneously. Cell phone data, surveillance, and witness reports remain critical to narrowing a search scope and building a defensible timeline. And while the public may see trucks idling and conclude nothing is happening, much of the crucial work, manifests reviewed, telematics analyzed, legal warrants prepared, takes place quietly before any excavation, ensuring that when recovery efforts occur, they stand up in court and respect the safety of search teams and the dignity of any victims. Strong wrap-up. The search for possible remains in cases like Emmanuel Haro's is a complex blend of science, logistics, and law. It requires meticulous mapping of waste routes, accounting for the destructive power of compaction, strict safety protocols, and the patient assembly of documentary proof before any ground is disturbed. Multiple disposal points, valley searches, and scattered evidence mean investigators cannot afford shortcuts. The public's visible comm masks 1,000 small, careful moves by specialists working behind the scenes. If you have credible information, a receipt, overlooked footage, a memory of a vehicle, or other verifiable detail, share it with investigators rather than social feeds. Precise, corroborated tips can narrow an excavation from acres to a few meters and, in the worst cases, deliver answers families desperately need.